Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Zevachim Daf Yud. We're going to begin on the bottom of Testament base, 4 lines from the bottom. Itmar. So we learn as follows: Shachta l'shma. Let's say a person does the shchita l'shma, but it's lizrog dama shelo l'shma. His intention is, while he's doing the shchita, that he's thinking, when I do the zrika, it's going to be shelo l'shma. So the question is, even though at the time that you did the shchita properly, but you also had a machshava about a later avoda that it was going to be done not properly. So Rav Yochanan Reb Psula Reish Lakish Ksheira. So you have a machlokas. Rav Yochanan Reb Psula mechashmin avoda l'avoda. So he says that you're mechashmin mi'avoda l'avoda, namely, that says Rashi. So in this situation, first of all, let's look at Rashi. Shachta l'shma shloi chishev al shchita el al hazrika chishev b'shah shchita. At the time of the shchita, you were thinking about zrika, which is mi'avoda avoda. Even though you're doing the avoda of shchita, you're thinking about a different avoda. So if your machshava about the zrika during the time of shchita was shelo shma, so according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, it's possible because you're machashmin avoda avoda. It says Rashi Kalemer, machshava mo'elas. Your machshava helps mi'avoda avoda. Machshava shelo l'shma. The fact that you had an improper machshava, even though it was not while you were doing the actual zrika, but nonetheless, the time of the shechita where you had an improper thought about the zvicha, about the sprinkling, so that also apostle. Okay. However, that's why Yochanan says it's possible, because machashmi avoda the alfina min machshavas pigul. And we'll learn out from pigul. What does that mean? It says Rashi the mahani behachi the non perik sheni. We're going to see later on hashaykhet es zevach. The person shechs a carbon almanas lizrei damul machar pigul. That is an iser pigul, having a machshava, even though you don't do it. But your machshava is, I am planning on doing the zrika not on its prescribed time. So we learn out from machshava's pigul that even though you're doing this while you're doing shchita and you're thinking improperly about the zrika, that it's going to be done not at the right time, so that considers it to be possible. So too, shelo shema should possible during shchita. However, of course it's true that when it comes to pigul, that's the din. That b'shah shchita, if you have a machshava that I'm going to end up doing the zrika at a different time, then that's a problem with pigul. However, that doesn't mean that that's going to also apply when it comes to the machshava shelo l'shma b'shah shchita about the zrika. V'yosel tamayim. And they go in accordance to their reasoning. Now, before we do that, Rashi says, "Hasam ikar machashavto hamevulidi pigul zuhi shiachashi beavoda zu lasos avoda acheres min achas o avodos." Okay. All right. So this is based on the following. It says v'ozul tamayu that they go according to their reasoning. Didmar, as we continue to Yudam Nalv. Hashaykhet es a behema almanas lizrek dama le'avoida iskachavim. A person shechs an animal, and apparently the shechita is fine. And Rashi says this is chulin. This is a non-carbon situation, but your intention is to do the sprinkling for idol worship. Says Rashi. Of course, according to this, it's asura bahana kedin zivchei mesim. Continue the Gemara. L'haktir chelva le'avoid iskachavim, or to be makdir its fats. So Rabbi Yochanan Omer asura. Why is it aser? Because machashmin me'avoid le'avoida. That's what he says. Just like we mentioned when it comes to have an improper machshava b'shah shchita, that you're thinking about shelo l'shma, about the zrika, that it's possible or it's aser. So too when it comes over here, if your intention is about doing this avoda of zrika to the avodah zara, it's the same thing, even though it's b'shah shchitas, because machashmi avodah avodah. Yafin chutz min bifnim, and we can learn chutz from the outside, from the inside, because the inside is pigul, and the chutz is avodah zara. Okay, fine. Again, looking at Rashi, Lazurk Dama Baskachavim, Hashchita lo Nasas L'Shem Baskachavim, El B'Shah Shchita Chishev Lavoid Hazrika L'Shem Baskachavim V'Loy Zorak. You didn't actually do it. Obviously, if you did the Zrika for Avodah Zarah, there's nothing to talk about. The question is, if you had the Machshava. Okay, so that's the idea, and again, that we learn out from Pigel, which is Bifnim, inside the Beis HaMikdash, to Avodas Kachavim, which is outside. Okay. Now, maybe if you only had this case, maybe only here does Reish Lakish said this din that it's mutter, because it's b'chutz, right? And we don't learn out from Pigel, because Pigel's inside and Avodah Zarah is b'chutz. However, our first case, where you're doing shchita b'fnim lishma, and you're doing it with the intention to sprinkle the blood shalishma. So maybe you're more likely to learn out from Pigel, and therefore taket should be a problem. Because it's inside. Maybe he's not going to be Yolef chutz mifnim. So tzricha. That's why we need both cases. Okay, let's look at question 3. Two answers. So one is our case, that you shecht l'shma, or you shecht an animal, a chulin animal, on condition that you sprinkle the blood about Avodas Kachavim. Okay. And you need both those cases because you would otherwise not be able to infer one from the other. Kios Rabdimi Aimer. So on Rabdimi he said the following: Most of Rabbi Yirmiyah l'suil Rabbi Yochanan. So he presents a question to support Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Yula l'suil Reish Lakish. And Rabbi Yula presents himself to support Reish Lakish's opinion. So Rabbi Yirmiyah l'suil Rabbi Yochanan, that says it's possible. So ma b'makom. How come? Just like in a place, she'im oimer, a person would say, quote, Hareini sheichet chutz zmanai. My goal is to check this thing outside of its proper time. Shu posel. So then, shu kosher. It's considered to be kosher because it's not a din of pigel if we're dealing with chutz l'zman. Shachto manas lizrek delma chutz l'zmanai posel. However, if he says, I'm going to shech that on condition to sprinkle the blood chutz l'zmano, it's possible. Because the whole issue is doing the b'shah shchita, having the intention of zerika in the improper time. Makam she'ein oimer hareini sheichet shul shmo apostle shachno manas luzuk dama shul shmo eno din she apostle. So in a situation where if he would say, I'm shechting it shul shma, that's possible. So if you shechted al manas to throw the blood shul shma, then certainly it should be possible. Okay. Says Rashi, Hareini sheichet chutz lizmanoi v'lo chishev al manas le'echol. Your condition was not to eat it, v'lo al manas lizroi, not to do this riko l'hakter el al shchita chishev shehi chutz lizmanoi. Your whole machshava is only on the shchita should be done chutz lizmanoi. In that case, it's kosher. D'la machshavahi the ein zman el bechilos adam umizbeach the zehu pigel. So it's only the pigel is connected to the zrika, not shchita. So if you have a pigel thought b'shash about shchita, then it's not going to be a problem. Okay. So Maskavu Rava Bar Eloi. Ma l'chutz l'zmanoi. How can you compare them when it comes to chutz l'zmanoi? A person says, I'm going to shecht chutz l'zmanoi. That's kosher. It's not pigel. But shekin kares. When it comes to a person who eats pigel, even immediately he's going to be chayv kares. Says Rashi, hoya v'chamer mahani bei mi avoida avoida. Maybe that's the reason why from one avoda to the other we're more strict, because in this a kares. So elom rabba boriloi hachakamer ma makoim. This is how you read it. In a place, Shimar, if you would say hareini sheichet chutz lim kaimai, then you say not chutz zmanai. But chutz lim kaima, I'm going to shecht it outside shehi kosher. In that case, it's kosher. Which is the same thing as having shech chutz l'zman kosher, because it's b'shas shchita. Shachto amanas lizrok dam chutz lim kaimok pasul. However, if you say I'm going to shecht almanas, eventually I'm going to do the zrika chutz lim kaimo, not in the right place, pasul, but there's no din kares. The only time there's a din kares is if your intention was lizrok damoi, not chutz lim kaimoi, but chutz lim zmanoi. If it's chutz lim zmanoi, there's an iser kares, but not if it's chutz lim kaimoi. So again, basically, we remove the whole question, which was apparently is an issue of chorus. So Rashi, so he said, you can't learn from here. First of all, if you look over here in Rashi, it says shachat l'shem ploini kosher. The ein shinui balam chal al shchita. There's no din shinui balam on the shchita. Shinui balam is only when your machshav is on the zerika. The ein shinui the loy shayach shem balam el al kapara, which is the zerika. Okay, it can only be on the zerika. Anyway, so we said, well, 1 second. The problem is that malachutz lim kaimoi, when you say that I'm going to shech chutz lim kaimoi, and it is kosher because it's time shchita, no b'chol zevachim. That applies for all karbanos. Tomer shlosh shmoi, when it comes to the din of shlosh shmoi, she'enu el b'pesach l'chatos. As we saw in our Mishnah, Daf Beis, the only time it passes is daf by Pesach and Chatas, but not by shar karbanos. The other karbanos are kosher, it's not oil l'shem chayiva, but still you can do. So elo emer Ravashi hachakamer. Umaba makam sheyimar when shaychet l'shem ploini. I'm going to check for this person, which is a shinoi balam issue, shu kosher. It's not. There's no issue of shinoi balam b'shashchit. It's only a shinoi balam about the zrika. So lizrei dama shlo l'shmo l'shem ploini apostles we know. So makam. She'ima merheinu shaycha shalishmoi l'shma. The person says, "I'm going to shecht with a not l'shma." That was shinei kaidish shu pasul. So shachto amnas lizrei dama shalishma nidu then shehi pasul. So it's like Rabbi Yochanan, because we see clearly over here you're machashmi v'odolei avoida by shalol l'shma, that even though what's happening over here, you're shechting almanas lizrei dama shalishma. Right? So why would you say that that's possible? It's because mechashmi avoda avoda, which is a proof to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Eloi usul reish lakish loy tamer b'zrika. Don't learn about zrika v'teis mekavachayim mibinei meshchita v'kabal. You can learn out from shchita and kabal. Says Rashi, mashchita shiksher bizar. When it comes to shchita, even a non-kun can do psula b'shaloi l'shma. But if it's shaloi l'shma, if you have a different intention, shinei kaidish, it's a problem. So Zrika l'kol, then Zrika certainly is more problematic. So my hilchasa. 1 second. Rabbi Lola say reish lakish loitem Rabbi Zrika v'tem chavachayim mirminei meshchita v'kabal. So my hilchasa kasav achman olaymer dein machashmi avod l'avoida. The whole purpose is to say that you're not machashmi avod from one avod to the next. Says Rashi. Ela b'shas zrika gufa boy machashiv. It's necessary to have an improper machshava about zrika during the zrika, not during the shchita, because you're not machashim yavod avoda. So matzim rapab of a dilman machashim yavod avoda. Taka, maybe it works. And came lishta kra minei, let the pasuk be silent. It tastes of kavachaymer. Do Ravashi, you can learn the kavachaymer. The fact that the pasuk says this pasuk could tell you that you're not machashim yavod avoda. Av idach. So parachachi, he can ask the following way: Malahana shechen to only safain. So all these other things, like the shchita, for example, requires that it must be done by the northern post, but not zrika, which is not done in north. The yishnin b'chatos apnimis. It also has the din of the chatos apnimis, which are in the heichel. Fine. The idach hashdamiyah b'shlomim kayamin. He'll say, Look at Rashi. Parachachi. Doin nafkala zrika makavachimer to kabal mashchita. Malhanach hilka chalav kro yiseru. It's not an extra pasuk to nail minevi in machashman. Fine. It says v'leikol mifrach tzafon shlomim lo boy tzafoin felisnu panemius. Okay. Itmar shachtel lishma. A person did the shechita properly. Lizrak dam shel lishma, which is again our case that we just began over here. Right, you're doing the shechting lishma. However, lizrak dam shel lishma. Okay, so we had a machlokas. Rav Nachman Omer psul, which is like Rav Yochanan, and Rabbi Omer kshera like Rish Lakish. V'hadabei Rabba like Gabi Rav Nachman kavachem to Rav Ashi. Eventually, Rabba ended up changing to the opinion of to like Rav Nachman, who's like Rav Yochanan, that apostles because of the kavachem of Rav Ashi that we said before. That again, let's just read it one more time. Maba makam shim oimer harini shechel l'shem pleni. A person has a shinui baalim, b'shash shchita that doesn't do anything. It's still kosher. But if you're shinui baalim does affect it when it comes to the time of zrika. So a place where if you would say I'm going to shecht shalashman, which is shinui kaidish, that does puzzle. So then certainly when it comes to a person shechs almanas lizrok, that it'll be puzzle. So therefore we see Machash Avoda Avoda like Rabbi Yochanan. Okay. Rabbi Lezer Omer Af Es Ha Asham. So now we get back to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah that said that when it comes to a Pesach during certain times, and also when it comes to the Chatos always, the din is that it's puzzle. It's not that it's kosher, it can keep bringing it. And then we have the second opinion of Rabbi Lezer that the same din applies to Asham. What's the difference between a Chatas and an Asham? So it should be the same din. Tanya Omer Rabbi Lezer Chatas Baal Chet v'Asham Baal Chet. They both come from sin. Ma Chatas Shalishma Psula. So Av Asham Shalishma Apostle. So that's the logic, right? Which quoted in the Mishnah. Okay. So Omer Lo, Rabbi Yeshua Lo. I can't compare the two. Ima Marta B'Chatas Shechein Damol Mala. When it comes to a Chatas, the blood is brought on above, says Rashi, Mechot HaSikra. There's this line that went around the Mizbeach, like the middle of the Mizbeach, which is called the Chot HaSitra. So when it came to the Zrika of a Chatas, it's done above that. As opposed to an Ola, which is not done that way. So you can't compare one to the next. So that even though the dam is on below the Chut HaSikra, apostle, but when it comes to Karban Pesach, it's the same thing, like a Chatas, that it's puzzle. So you can't say, oh, the reason why a Chatas is puzzle is because the dam is sprinkled above the Chut HaSikra, because Pesach is below the Chut HaSikra. So Rabbi Yeshua Malo Pesach Shechein Zman Kavua. It's not like an Asham because Karban Pesach has a set time. So Rabbi Lezer Chatas Techiach, that it's still puzzle, even though it's not at a set time, right? Like Pesach. So Amalo Rabbi Yeshua, so in this, he said, Chazrani, as we continue Yudam and Beis, Chazrani Chalila, says Rashi, V'lo Yokum Hadin, L'kam Parech, L'hadu Dina, V'tesi B'ma'atzah. Okay. Chaz Rabbi Lezer, V'danu Din Acher. He learned out something else. Chatas Nemer B'hi, B'shchita. He L'shma, Shera, Shol Lishma Psul. So when it comes to the Shechita, it has to be, if it was Lishma, it's good, not Lishma, not. Pesach Nemer Bohu, Bezvicha, Hu Lishma Kasha Shol Lishma Apostle. So if Hashem Nemer Bohu, Hu Lishma Kasha Shol Lishma Apostle. So basically what we're learning out is the reason why it's not just to say, oh, one's a sin, the other one's a sin, there's no difference. No, it's because of, it's Xeris HaKosav, that just like Chatas, that's it in, like a Pesach, based on these languages, so too when it comes to Asham. Okay. So Amar Rabbi Yeshua, Chatas nemer ba hi b'shchita. He l'shmo ksher shel l'shmo psul. Pesach nemer bo hu b'svicha. Hu l'shmo kasher shel l'shmo apostle. Aval Asham, when it comes to Asham, lo nemer bo hu. Doesn't say who. Eli achar hakatari semurin. It only says that after the bringing of the sacrificial parts. So you really can't learn out from a Chatas or a Pesach to Asham. You can't say that it's like Ma'akev, otherwise it's puzzle, because that context of bringing the sacrificial parts, if they weren't done, then it would still be kosher. It's not Ma'akev. So we see that the language doesn't really fit to be able to just simply include Asham as well. Rather, we cannot learn Chatas in Pesach to Asham. Rabbi Lezer, Hari Omer Kachatas Ka'asham. The pasuk says Kachatas Ka'asham. Ma Chatas Shloshim Apostle, Avashim Shloshim Apostle. So again, he resorts to this Gzersa Kasav. Omer Mar, Omer Rabbi Yeshua, Chazrani Chalila V'Hadir Dina V'Lesi B'Matzad. Why don't we learn from a Sad HaShava, right? Because we just had these, apparently have a good Sad HaShava. We said, well, let's learn out from the Chatas. No, you can't, because the Chatas is above the Chota Sikra. Yeah, but Pesach's not, and it's still possible. Yeah, but by Pesach, Zman Kavua. Yeah, but Chatas is not. So it's a Chayzer Din. There should be Zeh, Hasada Shomashimehen by Chatas and Pesach is Sholosh Mos Pasul. So Afani Avi Asham. So why don't we just learn out from a Sada Shava? So Mishum Diko Mifrach Mal Sada Shava Shemhem Shechein Yesh Behen Sad Kares, because Pesach is Kares, and also Chatas is Kares, because you're only bringing a Chatas because it was B'shogeg for an Avera in which you would be Chayev Chatas, not you be Chayev, Kares. Mashen Kin Asham. So therefore you can't learn out from a Sada Shava because there's a Pircha on the Sada Shava. Yeshua. Lo, Ima Marta B'chata Shechein Dam Lo Ma'ala, the Chatas is above the Chota Sikra. V'lei Mulei Lo, Ima Marta B'chata Shechein Nichnas Dam Lefno Lefnim. Why don't you leave it further? Why is the Chota Sikra such a biggie? Why don't you say that the blood is actually brought inside, as opposed to the Asham, which it's not? So let's look at Rashi. Can go in B'Yom Kippurim. So your answer is B'chatois Achitzainis Kamrinon. We're talking about the outer chatois. Says Rashi, in the psulos, v'yavlu ayle lefnim, even they don't go inside. Okay, she'im nichnas damo lefnim psula. Isler belezer afa asham. So the blood also becomes puzzle as well. Shechein machaperes achlebi krisus, but not asham. So Shul Shema should not passel. Where it says Mechatas Tishmias HaKoil. Yeah, but if we're looking out from there, Shechein Tuna Arba Matanes, the Chiyuv regarding Shmias Koil, you have to do 4 blood applications. An Asham is 2 Matanes, 2 gifts, so to speak, on 2 corners. The Chatas is put on, that's the Asham. And the Chatas is put on all 4 sides. There's 4 placements. Chatas has Arba Matanos, and Asham only has 2. So Rabbi Yishmuel, Diamer Kol Hadamim Tu'unin Arba Matanos. Shechein Tu'una al Arba Kran. Okay, so you say no, you also need 4 by the Asham. Okay, fine. But when we say Shechein Tu'una al Arba Kranos, it has to be put on all 4 corners, not just in the middle, so that you can hit both sides. Tameich ha'ika etzba, ha'ika karen, ha'ika chudya. Right, so there are other distinctive matters. El chad mitrei tlos tami nokat. Right, so he could have asked other questions. That Chatas's blood is on the top, so he could ask these other different questions too. Right, that says the ik karen there's a corner. The Karanis in the Mizbeach, also it's on its point, right? So you could have said all these other things as well. Fine. Fine. So that's that. Okay. So Omer Rabbi Yeshua lo Ima Marta. So Leimule Rabbi Lezer Asham Nami Dam Lamala. You can also say that dam is also above the Chutta Sikra. So Rabbi Asham Dam Lamala Lamatasami. You can't say that because Kavachayim Oila. Ma Oila she Kol is completely burnt up. Dam Lamata. And Oila, interesting enough, the blood is below the Chutta Sikra. So Asham Shin Kol Kol Shekain certainly should go down there. So Mal Oila Shekain in Machaperes. Oil is not mechaper, so maybe that's the reason why. So chatas ha'oif dechiach, because the chatas ha'oif does achieve kapara, but that doesn't matter. So mal chatas ha'oif shechein enu min zevach. So you can't compare because that's a bird as opposed to a behema. Oil techiach, that it's still the same. It's the same min. Lo rizekri zeh. Kasada Zevachim Shehein Kachi Kadoshim, Bedam Lomata, and the blood is sprinkled below. Safani Avia, Ashim Shehu Kaidosh Kadoshim Bedam Lomata. So we can see that by an Asham, the blood application is below. Amirava me Parski or Ravash Livrach Malasada Zevachim Shehein Elahem Kitzba. It has no set time. Term of Asham Sheshel Kitzba, which does have a set time. What does that mean? So Rashi says, Ein lehen kitzbe l'demehen. The Asham Yeshel Kitzba l'doma b'kesev shkolim. Okay, like one has a set amount of money. Okay. El Hainu Tam Rabbi Lezer, the Pasuk says, a koyin hamachati oisa dama lamala. His blood is above. The ein dam shalach lamala. It's below. So ihachi chatas nami nema oisa l'shma kasher shel l'shma psula. So the answer is hashar Zevachim. When it comes to other karbanos, ben l'shman ben shel l'shman kasherin. So hahu oisa that oisa is lav davka. To Hashar Pesach, because it also has a psul shel shema. So Achinami lav davka. To Hashar oil sa'oif, because haba oil sa'oif. So Mezvicha mil shire. However, when it comes to animals, there's no difference. Diboy seima hamani Rabbi Lezer ber Shimon he dirmer high makom mechud v'high makom mechud. They're all different places above. The sanya mayma tachdainim nitnim mechut sikra lamata, that the below waters will go to the Chutta Sikra below. They'll yoinim the Chutta Sikra l'mala. So Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Shimon b'medim or amurim b'oil sa'oif. When he says b'oil sa'oif, b'chatas behema he atzmei nasa el gufa shel karen. Okay, so that is actually unique as well. We're going to stop there. Let's see a couple questions. All right, so again, question 3 we did that you have the machshava at the time of shchita, proper machshava, but you also have a machshava of zrika, shlo shma, and also when it comes to chulin, you're doing the shchita and you're thinking that I'm going to end up doing a zrika for avodas kacham. So that was a machlokas or machashmi abudah. Question 4. Maha Kavachaymer. One is the Kavachaymer of Rav Asi to support Rav Yochanan and machashmi abudah. So we went out from Shilei Kodesh. Let's get the words right. Mabu makam shemar mehina shayich l'shem pliny. A person says I'm going to check for some person shu kosher, right? Hashayich l'Israel dam l'shem pliny puzzle, because when it comes to Shini Baalim, it's all totally on the time of the shchit, not the time of the zrika. So makim sheim omer heidi shayich shel shman. When it comes to a place in which he says I'm going to check shel shman shu puzzle. So if you do zrika shel shman, certainly it should be puzzle. Okay. TA 20. Heichen mokum matan dam shel chatas behema. So where is the blood applications? So we saw, according to one opinion, and this is referring to the chatas behema, right? So one opinion is it's l'mal mechut sikra, and then there's another madiyam that says it's al gufa shel keren. It's mamish put on the horn itself. It says Rashi, ha'evan shel amma al amma, this stone, which is a amma by amma, shibaraish mizbeach on the top. Shechol matim in a karanis psul, anything below is pasul. Okay, so that's a unique interpretation, that when it comes to the din of a chatos, it either is above the chatasikra, and or it's gufa shel keren. Okay, TB 22. Mehechi alfin and mechashmi avoda avoida leba the Rav Yochanan. Two answers. So this is basically the same as question 3. So let's just mark this down. So one is, this is TB 22. One who does shchita l'shma, lizor dama shelo l'shma, or TB 22. A person has that machshava regarding avoda zara. Let's say machshava zrika shaloi l'shma b'shah shchita. Machshava avoda zara b'zman shchita. Okay, those are the right answers. Okay, TB 23. Adkan.